Well, greetings and welcome back. One of my favorite idols in the entertainment field was none other than W.C. Fields, a comic actor, comedian, writer, hard drinking guy on and off screen, a juggler, a director who always showed a contempt of children and family members. He was a unique performer who did all of his own stunts, which was common for that era, as most of his movies were done almost a century ago, the 1920s through the 1940s. In his many movies, he was the classic raconteur, always drinking liquor, keeping his distance from his family, as he always played the role of the mischievous rascal. He was very clever with his movies, and behind all of his creations, he was slacking on his family duties, drinking constantly, and walking away from his obligations. He was usually found in a bar or restaurant, telling exaggerated tales to the people around him, which were often strangers. He was quite talented, and I still maintain a soft spot for him, as recently I've started watching many of his bits on YouTube. For me, he is definitely worth watching. I'd like to know who came up with the idea of Russian roulette. This has to be one of the dumbest ideas in history. You have to realize that if you're willing to play the real game of Russian roulette from such movies as The Dare Hunter or Arizona Dream, you should really take a step back and rethink this. Not a very good endeavor for your survival. Somehow, pointing a loaded gun with one bullet in the barrel at your head is inconceivable. Not a very good idea. You should really consider a safer sport or challenge. And for those who aren't familiar with the average white band, yes, they're white, but there's nothing average about this band. They're a great band from Scotland. They've been around since the early 1970s. I've always enjoyed the paradoxical statements, which states a proposition that seems self contradictory or absurd, but in reality expresses a possible truth, such as a person's ignorance is sometimes not only useful, but beautiful, while their so called knowledge is oftentimes worse than useless, besides being ugly. And this statement came from the author Henry David Thoreau. A week or so ago, I noticed a thread of text messages from my love one day, and I think there were four of them. And in each case, I had a question for her, and each one of her replies was no. So then I asked her if she still loved me. No reply. I asked again, and she said that she's thinking about it. Oh, well, just another day. I'm almost 70 years old, and I still have the brain of a 26-year-old. So much to say and do, but now with so little time. And of course, what I'm doing right now is not very productive. And you got to love the CBS This Morning show with Gail, Nate, Tony, and Vlad. Their energy and caffeine fueled jabbering to me is kind of inspiring, especially when they're all talking together at the same time. So, on this one recent morning show, they all got so loud and boisterous that the directors and/or producers cut right to the commercials since they all got so carried away and were actually yelling so loud that they had no choice but to air the commercial. Gail, Nate, and Tony, and Vlad was not with them during this airing, were so involved with whatever they were yelling about that they never introduced the commercial, which I thought was quite funny. Those ads are paying for your show. And if I was one of the producers or directors of the show, I'd have only allowed decaffeinated coffee or tea for them. But you have to admit, they are entertaining despite the fact that they get so wrapped up in their segments that you can't understand what any of them are saying. And I caught a couple of episodes on Evolution Earth on PBS, an illuminating series using their explanation, if I may, on how the animal kingdom is keeping pace with the planet changing at super speed. The series explores various wilds and modern urban environments, tracking how animals are moving, using ingenuity to adapt their behavior, and even evolving in unexpected ways. They uncover heartwarming tales of resilience that redefine our understanding of evolution and uncover how nature can show us a path toward a sustainable future for our planet. Or as I call it, we ain't got time for that. And here's the reason why I say that. This series could use this title since we now have very little time to adapt. And if you can't do it in 2 or 3 years, it could be over for you. It's a fascinating series, and I've only seen two episodes, and the most recent one explored how male crickets were being invaded by a parasite that would eat away at their body during the mating season, since they were able to identify them from the mating call. And amazingly, within 2 years, I believe it was, the male crickets changed their rather ostentatious mating call not only to spare themselves, but to spare the species. That's a remarkable achievement and an example of how quickly species can adapt. I just hope that we humans could do the same thing. I highly recommend the series on public broadcast, and I look forward to the next episodes. I'm trying to figure out what conservatives are trying to conserve. Because from what I detect, what they want to conserve is either blasphemous or not worth conserving. They're way off the track. They want to walk backwards and live in another period of time that no longer exists. I've never witnessed a political party in my life that is so out of touch with reality. And we're talking some major psychoses here. And I'll leave it at that. And lastly, I was listening to Cherry Bomb by John Cougar Mellencamp recently and really enjoyed some of the lyrics in the song since John is our age and we can identify with the words. And here goes. I was going to sing this, but I'll speak it instead. I'll save all of you. 17 has turned 35. I'm surprised that we're still living. If we've done any wrong, I hope that we're forgiven. Got a few kids of my own, and some days I still don't know what to do. I hope that they're not laughing too loud when they hear me talking like this to you. That's when a sport was a sport, and grooving was grooving, and dancing meant everything. We were young and we were improving. Laughing, laughing with our friends, holding hands meant so much, baby. Outside the club Cherry Bomb, our hearts were really pumping. Say, yeah, yeah, yeah. Say, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'll stop here.